Yay!
You missed us. Bart's not in his little box. You can't see him yet, but we are here, and I'm really excited to bring you something for New Year's. Tonight's guest that we have is Mr. Or is it Doctor?
Yeah,
Mr.
Doctor.
It's
Mr.
Doctor. It's Dr. Mr. Glenn Moriarty. I know you're watching Sherlock Holmes too. I know you have the PBS. But really, truly, he's here with us today to talk about a platform that he developed and that he leads now that is doing pretty high volume of peer-to-peer crisis support and is really in the private sector. I know you're shocked because I'm shocked, but I can't wait to introduce you. We are back from the new year. We're trying some new things like we try all the time. So several of you, we tried a Facebook poll today, and we were just working on learning engagement. Several of you noticed that we tried blabs over the hiatus, the holiday hiatus, and you followed Dr. Mike Sevilla and Dr. Bart Andrews while they were doing great blabs, or you saw Sean stuck on social work, and you saw Zing. A lot of people did their own content over the holidays. If you missed any of it, I am sure that Sean stuck on social work and Zing will probably tweet some of that out right now. I'm at Doc Foreman. If you're new to the show, just turning in, I'm one of the moderators at the Suicide Prevention Social Media Chat at 9 p.m. Central Sunday nights. And have we got a great season planned for you? Very quickly, since oh, there he is. He's back. I want to introduce you to our technology producer, Mr. Tony Wood. Tony, say hi to the people.
Hey, everybody.
Tony, where can people find you on the interwebs?
At ADWWW on Twitter.
And if you have a question or you want to get something to us and maybe we're not paying attention to the Twitter feed right that minute, shoot a tweet to Tony Wood or to one of our moderators, and you guys are so great at getting to us, and we will do our best to address your questions during the stream. We have our favorite wonderful co-moderator on tonight, Dr. Bart Andrews. Dr. Bart Andrews, fresh from your blab season.
The blabs are a lot of fun. Mike is Dr. Mike Sevilla is amazing. Great to be here tonight. I do so you can reach me at Bart Andrews on Twitter. I am from Behavioral Health Response, an amazing crisis agency in St. Louis, Missouri. I do have BHR-related news. I'm going to plug my boss, who was awarded a Visionary Leader Award by the National Council of Behavioral Health. So that's a really big deal. So I'm really excited about that. Pat is an amazing boss to have, and that's really cool. I'm so excited about the show tonight. I had heard a little bit about 7 Cups of Tea over the last 6 months, and people kept talking about it, and I had no idea what it was. So getting to do a little research and get familiar with it, it's so cool. I'm so glad that Dr. Mr. Glenn is here with us tonight. I do want to clue folks in that the vote on the nail polish was a sham. We did learn in the So because I can't lie to our audience. Some of us can. We know who that would be. And so it turns out that actually the vote was a tie. But because the nail polish that she really wanted to wear got ahead earlier, she went with that. And so we all, yeah, it feels like 2000 all over again. Instead of hanging Chad, we've got a ramping
dragon. Flying dragon is the nail polish for tonight. You all were in a glitter mood, so it is a bright fuchsia with purple and pink micro glitters. Stay tuned for our poll next week. You get to choose parts of the show.
The sanctity of the Facebook poll has been violated, and a report will be filed.
Bart, thank you for your good news. We're really excited. And now, a sham. Yes, Noreen, it was a bit of a sham. Not all of us are sweet and innocent as you, Noreen. But we are going to bring in our guest experts. I'm super excited. I love doing calls and getting to meet people. That's one of the best parts of SPSM is meeting people whose work I admire. And so I end up talking to Dr. Mr. Glenn, for I think like a couple of hours or something. Like we had a quick phone call, and then it just was. My little heart was touched, and so it just was super exciting. I'm really glad that you're here with us, Dr. Moriarty. Can you please introduce yourself to the people?
Yeah, I'm really thankful to be here too. I think it's a really nice environment. It's a very fun group. It was fun chatting with you and Tony that day, and it was nice getting to know Bart just now. So, looking very forward to talking all with you about the service 7 Cups and kind of answering some questions and maybe even doing some collective problem solving together.
So, Glenn, tell us a little bit about what you were a doctor of. I'm assuming it's not proctology.
Yes, psychology. Yes, I'm a psychologist. Yes.
Talk a little bit about your background and how you ended up here.
So I'm a psychologist, but I'm also a entrepreneur. Nice.
You're a psychologist who makes money on purpose? I've heard of those.
This is a good point. Yes. But anyways, yeah, I also own an educational technology company, and kind of the story behind Seven Cups is my wife is also a therapist. She's a LPC, and she works in an OBGYN clinic here. But I was talking to her one night about a problem I was having, and she was listening to me. And I was kind of thinking, okay, what do I want to do next? And I knew that I wanted to do an offline behavior that hadn't yet moved online. So like my other company is an online learning company, but like learning used to be all offline. Now it's, you know, obviously mostly online and becoming more so.
People are using technology to learn things?
Yes, yes, all kinds of industries.
Cats and dogs living together? Man!
Yes. So, but anyways, I was talking to her and she was listening to me and I thought, man, what do people do who don't have a therapist for a spouse? Like, it's crazy because life is so challenging. And then that was when I thought we should make a service where anybody who needs to talk to somebody at any time, you know, can press a button and start chatting with somebody. And kind of that was the beginning of Seven Cups. And it's been, you know, I think I shared some of the story about going out to Silicon Valley and going through Y Combinator and like all that process. And
these people don't know that story, and some of them may not know what Y Combinator is. Tell them about it.
So Y Combinator is a startup accelerator in California, in Mountain View. So think about it like an accelerated graduate program for startups. And they're behind companies like Airbnb, Reddit, Dropbox, Stripe, Zenefit. So like they're really intense. And I was really lucky to get in. I didn't expect to get in. I was laying on my couch and they said, hey, if you submit your applications to Y Combinator, they have like a little news thing. We'll read them. So I like stayed up late till like 2 a.m. that night and I submitted an application and kind of forgot about it. And then it was like a couple months later, I was on my couch and I was reading and they said, hey, notifications are gone out if you're going to be invited for an interview. And I like quickly checked my email and I'd been invited for this 10-minute interview. They were going to fly me out there for a 10-minute interview. And I was like totally shocked, did not expect to be invited for an interview. So went out there and met with some really bright folks. And they said, you know, I even after the interview, I didn't expect to be accepted. So they said, so I had scheduled my flight to come back early.
Oh.
And they said, listen, you know, it's a 10-minute interview. And they said, if you're in, we'll call you. And if you're out, we'll give you an email. And I went, I got a really nice porter, dark beer, sat on the side, you know, sat on a cafe.
This
and
is so sad.
I got a call from a Palo Alto number. I don't know anybody from Palo Alto. And it was the guy who created Gmail. And he was like, hey, we want to make you an offer to come to Y Combinator. And I was like, wow. Oh my God.
So what did you do with your glass slippers?
I know, really? It was crazy. I just felt super thankful. So pushed back my flight and came back here. And then I went back out there for 3 months. And, you know, that was really where we learned a lot about how to use technology, how to create a product, how to create something that people want, and then learn from that process quickly to keep making it better. And it was incredibly stressful. It was incredibly challenging. It was incredibly rewarding.
Now that process involves having lots of meetings where you vote on regulations, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Right. Yeah. No.
Except for the opposite of that.
No. It was like, it's more like this. Like, this was my first meeting with the partner that I was working with. Was like, I was still working on our website, like trying to make it look nice and we were even talking about veterans actually at the time. We were thinking this will be really helpful for parents of children with disabilities, and veterans. Those are the two groups, but mostly it was going to be parents of children with disabilities. So, and I had interviewed a whole bunch of these parents, and they were like, yes, we need this service. It would be awesome. Thank you so much. So I got out there and I'm trying to show this guy our website. And he's like, have you gotten this in front of anybody yet? Have any actual real people used this yet? And I was like, well, no, we're still building it, not yet. And he was like, okay, go get it in front of people and I'll see you next week. And I was like,
wait a minute. You tested it without many months of approval?
Yeah, it was like
You're
go
not
home,
a real person.
go home that night, try to slap it together, and you know what we learned?
What?
This is crazy. This is the for any of us who's like trying to do this mental health stuff and technology. What we learned is all the parents that told me that, it was like crickets. None of them used it. We built it. We launched it, we let everybody know, and it was like crickets. And it was like, I had pitched this as an idea. Like I had come out to California to meet with these guys, and like the people that I thought wanted this thing, they don't want it. And the reason they didn't want it was all their kids were home from school, and the thing that causes them stress is their kids being in school, and it was the middle of the summer. And it was like, oh my goodness. So anyways, we had to quickly figure it out. And you know who ends up needing it is anybody who's struggling or going through a hard time. But we had to learn that. The point of that is just in what their mantra is, is you got to get your product in front of people, because the quicker you can do that, the faster you can learn. And like to your point about, regulation and meetings and strategizing and strategic plans and like all that stuff is fine. But so often what we think we know is just wrong. And
right.
The only way you learn it is by doing it. So you have to have like this real kind of like gung-ho, I'm going to learn, and it's going to be tough, but we're going to figure it out.
And by the way, nobody exploded. There was no tremendous disaster. But you were able to innovate this platform called 7 Cups of Tea. And very, very quickly, I know that some of you, and a big shout out to like Carl and Noreen and to student, and by the way, Christy, I do want you to know you're in all of our thoughts tonight. I can't even believe you're tuning in. It's a pleasure that you're here. But we have, Des is here, Fel is here, all of you wonderful people. If you are not watching X-Files, or even if you are, go ahead and open a separate tab up there and open up that 7 Cups. If you haven't already, I know several of you have looked at it. So as he talks about this, you can look at what he is going to be explaining to you, because we're going to talk a lot about how this works, and we're going to talk a lot about some of the things you might not know, like how many people it serves and some of the challenges that they've overcome. But we really are going to leave it to you to go ahead and explore the site and ask us intelligent questions. And with that, I'm going to bring you right back, Glenn. I apologize for interrupting.
Yeah.
But people are pulling this platform open. Tell us a little bit about how it works and what it does.
Sure. So 7 Cups is basically, the big vision is we're trying to build the emotional support system for the internet. So that's like the crazy idea. So like no matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, no matter what language you speak, no matter what country you're in, you can go online and, hopefully within seconds, certainly within minutes, be chatting with somebody in an anonymous way. So these are the things. It's anonymous, it's convenient, it's an app, or it's web-based, and it's free. So anyways, there's no barriers to people getting help. So we try to remove all the barriers. And then you're chatting, and you can, like the first thing we want to do when we're going through a hard time is we want to talk to somebody about it. It's a universal human impulse, because talking about it helps you feel better. So anyways, that's really what it is. And we have 120,000 listeners across 189 countries, providing support in 140 languages at present. We do 130,000 conversations a week right now. We've grown at like a ridiculous rate. We have 600,000 links to our site. Folks like Tumblr refer people that, at Tumblr, if you're writing a blog about depression, Tumblr will pop a little thing up that says, hey, if you're struggling, there are people that that care about you, you can go here to get support. And we've worked with April, I don't know if we talked about this before, but we now have a vertical where pretty soon any organization will be able to launch their own mini branded version of 7 Cups. MIT is on board. They're our first organization client. Another
Are you
one
working with Media Lab, or who are you working with at MIT?
With their counseling center folks. So they're going to be taking 7 Cups.
MIT.
They're going to be taking their students. They have a peer group. So their supporters will be on their little version of MIT. It's like an island. You can think of 7 Cups proper as like the mainland. And then there's like these little islands. And they're all branded. But their students will be listeners for their students. So student listeners supporting other students.
Now, wait a minute.
Wow.
You mean that you're not the government and you're not doing this, like you're just a private organization getting this done? But Glenn, you're only one man.
Well, this is not, it's just to be clear, this is not just me at all. There's actually a whole handful of us on the team. If you read our, well, there's plenty of us, but and to be totally clear, the real magic in 7 Cups is the community. It's the people, it's the peers, it's the people that are our mentors, our mentor leaders, our peer supporters. We have like this whole military-like process of commitment. Yeah. So, but those guys are the real, they're the real deal. They're the people. I mean, we have people that have helped thousands of people on 7 Cups. So they're really there's beautiful people that really deeply care. And
basically what you're doing is you're saying I can't grab every starfish and throw it in, but I can make it so that anybody who wants to grab a starfish off the beach and throw it in can do that if they want, as much as they want. And it turned out there's a whole lot of people who'd like to.
Yes, yeah, the whole are humans altruistic thing. Like, yes, we are. We actually really deeply care about one another, and it's very evident on 7 Cups.
So Bart, this is a moment for you to come in, and I'm really interested as a person who is leadership at a crisis center, a more traditional crisis center, what your reaction is.
Well, my reaction is there's just so much wisdom in what Glenn is saying, and the things that are just so impressive to me is he took a risk. He tried something new. He reached out and he connected some dots that I think we've all been chewing around the edges around recently for me. So I'm just thinking this is something I've been coming to in the last year of my life. Glenn recognized this quite a bit ago and put it in action, which is ever so cool. One of the things that he said that really hit me is that you've got to get this up and out and in front of people. You see so many things get developed and people put months and months and years into develop things before they actually get people using it, and then it sucks, right? And you put all this time, and by that time, if your platform's established, you're really locked in.
I've been consulted about just doing an infographic where they did 6 months of meetings about doing the infographic perfectly. An infographic, not an entire helping platform.
Nothing gets up. Tony and I were talking the other day. It's like don't do feasibility studies, because if you wait to do a feasibility study is like 9 out of 10 times say it's not feasible. Nothing ever gets done if you do a feasibility study. I know we did a lot of feasibility studies for SPSM. How'd that work out?
Not jokes. Anyway, go ahead.
And I think that, so as Glenn is talking about this, it's amazing, because one of the things, it really leverages what's so powerful about social media, though. The whole concept of I want, I need, I have, being able to pull that all together. You've got people who want to be helpful. You've got people who need help. And what I am willing to guess is that sometimes those roles switch, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And that's one of the biggest things, and I swear, one of the things that drives me so crazy about mental health, roles switch. I saw your face, Foreman. So the thing that just drives me crazy about mental health is this idea that we are only there to help people, that they're not there to help us. And if you don't enjoy providing services and doing suicide intervention, doing therapy, and if you don't get something out of it, if it doesn't benefit you, please get out of the field immediately. I would like you to go into some other kind of work.
Blasphemer!
because I think that there's lots of us when we're struggling, if we're able to own that and helping other people helps us feel good, it's amazingly. Therapy can be therapeutic for the therapist as well. And I think that this concept that he's hooked into is just so earth-shatteringly cool.
So people are benefiting really in a couple different ways. They're benefiting that they're getting to receive help, and they're benefiting that they get to give help. I mean, really, in many ways, this is a platform that allows a lot of really good things to happen, and a handful of people with private funding get it done, which is it's pretty sexy. I'm going to have to start taking layers off, let me tell you. But now, we've also been to the site, so Glenn, I would like for you to talk a little bit about how you set everything up so it worked like this, because we also know about 4chan. We know that some places are full of people who are altruistic, but I think like tonight people were, which was the kicker that people were tweeting to kill himself tonight on the football games?
I don't know.
Oh, I'm a person that didn't watch sports. I did social media stuff. So some of the people in our community were noticing, like, you know, people who are really, you know, in jest or to be mean and trained to incite suicide. People aren't, in fact, always altruistic, or sometimes people aren't as healthy as you'd hope. So how do you handle that, and at this huge of a scale with people who may be in crisis, ensuring that people are taken care of and are safe?
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question. And we didn't, just to go back to the, we didn't have all the answers in the beginning.
You started something without all of the answers?
We still don't have all the answers.
Heretic!
Yeah, we're still struggling. It's still a process that you got to figure out. So let's just be clear on the front end. Like, we have not cracked the code on that, but there's a lot of things we do. So first of all, you have to self-select to be a listener. And it's a while. I mean, it's not anything like, I'm sure Bart's crisis counseling training program is pretty extensive. Ours is not. It's, you know, it's like an hour. You watch some videos, you answer some questions, you go through a mock chat with a bot that acts like a distressed person. And then every, yeah, there's a bot that acts like a distressed person.
Bot. How did you get that?
It's really basic. It's not awesome.
Yeah, but it's like a CPR dummy. It's like a CPR dummy for mental health.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fucking brilliant. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know about that. I got excited. I apologize.
Yeah, that's all right. So yeah, we did that. And then what happens is the person becomes a listener. And once that happens, they can immediately start taking chats. And then, because everything is done through messaging. So we used to have, this is a quick tangent, we used to have voice and messaging. But what we learned is that, and this will put the further mental health field in context.
Mm-hmm.
The more barriers you remove, the more people you can help. And like, you have to make them super small. So like, for most therapists, like, so think about this. You call a therapist. I mean, and I'm not trying to be but anyways, you call a therapist, you drive to the, you know, you schedule an appointment, you drive to the therapist's office.
And the traffic in Baton Rouge will make you suicidal.
You wait in the waiting room, you go in there, you do like an hour and a half intake, and then you get to tell your story, and then you get to leave and you get to come back in a week. That's like 27 steps, right? To get some help. And then
when you feel terrible, by the way.
When you feel really, really bad, right? And then you step that back and you say, okay, well, maybe there's video conferencing, right? Which is like the telemedicine thing, and that's the big approach. And I think there's definitely space for that. But people still find it intimidating. And then you step it down from that, and you've got voice, right? Now, think about the trends with phones. Like, if you go back 10 years ago, how much less do you use your phone now than you did? That's happening, like, worldwide. Where, like, nobody uses the phone. It's a computer that has a voice app, basically. But anyway, so then we did the voice, and then you step down from there and you have anonymous messaging, and that turns out to be the thing that people really want. Like, they don't want the voice. Like, we built out an entire voice suite. So we would ring you, whatever your phone was, we would ring you, we would connect people anonymously. 99.5% of people just wanted to do anonymous messaging.
So you didn't do a 2-year study with an N of 63 and multiple regression to decide that it wasn't clear if people preferred the phone or text? You just sort of tried both and did the one that you got more traction with?
Yep, basically, yeah. And the data was very, very clear. So anyways, that's just a quick tangent, but
But it's sort of the tangent, but it's actually sort of the point. Like, they're going to go to Seven Cups and they're going to look at that. And I hope that you guys stay in contact with Glenn. He really has a lot of experience and knowledge about this topic. What you really have to understand is the reason that Glenn can do any of this is because he's doing it a different way. Sorry.
yeah.
So excited about what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think we can all, I mean, I think we need to like actually really collaborate and figure out how to bridge some of these more, you know, more kind of traditional approaches with what we're doing. Like we really believe this is a humongous problem, and we're not going to solve it on our own. We need the full kind of continuum of care, spectrum of care. We're going to start bringing therapists on Seven Cups. We're going to build a directory. People will be able to build through Seven Cups and see people through our platform.
Wow.
Right. There's a growth path piece that we didn't talk about, but if you don't want to chat with somebody, because guess what? Even chatting with somebody, anonymous chatting with people causes people a lot of anxiety. You wouldn't think that. But if you can do a mindfulness exercise or a brief CBT exercise or watch a short 2-minute video on ACT or ACT, like that sometimes is more effective for people. Yes. So we also have this growth path, and then we have like game elements where people earn badges. But anyways, going back to your listener point.
Yeah, like you can earn badges as a listener, you can earn badges as a participant, and I would like to point out, kids at home. Okay, so this is Glenn. There are very, very, very few people who understand the technology. He's a psychologist by trade, so he knows what he's saying when he talks about CBT, mindfulness, and ACT and things like that. But also running a for-profit private organization. Well, I think for-profit. Maybe making things up, but and creating technology and then creating iterations of it. This is a field. It is a possible thing to do, and Glenn is someone who's doing it.
Yeah. So just to get back to your other point there about like what do listeners go through. Mm-hmm. So then once they become a listener, every chat is evaluated or has the ability to be evaluated on professionalism, response time, empathy, and helpfulness. So if you go to any listener profile, you can see the number of chats they've taken, you can see their badges, you can see what their qualitative reviews have been and what their star ratings are. And then people can also go through extra training like Active Listening 1, Active Listening 2. They can become a verified listener where they've been with a more experienced listener who's done like role play with them and they passed the test. And then they can move through 242 levels of becoming a listener.
That sounds like a game on my phone.
That's exactly what it is. It has those types of game mechanics built into it. And then along the way, you kind of earn badges and you kind of increase your leadership capabilities, you know, on the platform.
I'm actually Amelia, who everybody knows as Atos. Atos is on tweeting that she really enjoyed the platform. She's going to talk a little bit more about that on the Twitter chat while you sort of talking about it.
Awesome.
Tell us a little bit about some of the problems you had to solve that stand out to you in order to make this work.
Sure. So this is going back to the kind of the beauty of the community. When we first started, the demand has always been much higher than the supply. So like the people that need support, there's always been more people that need support than people that want to provide support. And that was especially a challenge early on. And we were talking a little bit about how we can be a little bit stodgy. I was unfortunately quite stodgy in the beginning of this process. And Y Combinator in the community and these other folks broke me down of my stodginess. But one of the things I thought at the beginning was like, hey, you know, let's be really careful about this listener process. It should be graduate students or undergraduate students that are even
must be experts.
Well, yeah, we have to. We just can't have anybody being a listener, right? Which was ridiculous that I even believed that way, but I did. And then this guy Robin, who worked at NAMI, he was an English guy. He was like 65, super sweet guy. He said, Glenn, what if we put a little banner up that said, do you know that one of the best ways to help yourself is to help somebody else?
Wow.
So we put this really tacky blue banner up, and it would like, at like 8 messages in the chat, would be like, whoop, whoop, and then would fall away. And that happened, that dramatically helped us solve our listener problem. Because then all the people that were getting helped could go, boom, I want to be a listener. And they would go through the listener training process. And then,
Do you know how many of my patients, as they start to get well, say, I want to do what you do? I never thought of this. It's brilliant. I'm sorry. Who is Robin, and how can I meet him?
He's a fantastic guy. He's out in Santa Clara. He was a peer supporter at NAMI.
Oh
like,
my
that's
gosh,
what
Robin!
that's like,
if you were out there, I could face kiss you. That is brilliant.
yes, super bright guy. But anyways, that key insight, and like we know, most mental health professionals are wounded healers, right? Like 70% of us have gone through our own challenges, our own struggles, and we're on the other side. So it's actually like the same process, but it's something that we're in a little bit of denial about as a profession. But we don't have to be in denial about that on 7 Cups. We can just be real about these things. So anyways, that was one example of a problem. Another example was we didn't realize that how important community was. Like, so community is not something you normally think a lot. You think about community and community psychology, but you don't really think about community in the mental health world so much. But all these listeners, they wanted community. So we had to start building out this infrastructure for listeners to like help them hang out with each other and support each other. And then we had to start doing that on the member side too.
Just take a pause. Bart, Glenn, it's so funny you would mention this. Bart, what happened in April after the AAS conference?
Well, somebody decided to create this community on Facebook Message, right? It was Tony. And I remember even saying to Tony, I'm like, why are we doing this, right? I was like, this is just
like we were getting on the plane to go to the next conference.
I was like, what is this? Why are we doing it? It turned out to be one of the coolest things ever. And what the things that Glenn is talking about, the whole concept of community, and I think this really gets at just having read an amazing book, Neurotribes, where the author really hit the nail on the head that most of the things that we cause illnesses aren't really illnesses at all, but what makes them look like illnesses is how society reacts to the people who are struggling, right, or who are different, really. And so this whole, people want to belong to a community, and so much of therapy and treatment is about making people like everybody else, right? That's really, when you stop and think about it, it's really a social control mechanism, right? To get everybody in the same, close to the center of that bell curve. And here, what Glenn is talking about, you know what, people are all over the place. People want to be a part of a community. Let's make communities where people are at. Let's respect that diversity, and that's so powerful. And the other thing, that providers need this sense of community. I know somebody that recently met somebody that grew up in Argentina, where therapy is really common, and psychotherapy and psychoanalysis is huge, and therapy is free. And when he came up here, and he's a psychologist, and started talking about his therapeutic experiences on a daily basis, his colleagues lost their shit, right? Well, you know, we don't really talk about this stuff, but we should be, and we should be having communities around this, and we should be helping people help each other and helping ourselves all at the same time. And here Glenn's doing this shit, and it's blowing my mind. And the feed is just blowing up, Glenn. You got to know that people are so
really identifying with this. This is why I picked this for the opener. I knew that they would. Glenn, you should know that what Tony started, and Tony's come on. Tony started a Facebook community. And Tony, do you want to just briefly sort of explain what happened on the SPSM side of this, really similar to what's happening with 7 Cups?
It seemed like a really good idea at the time.
I was like half asleep when you did it.
Well, we were in the airport, and everybody was texting me. And you know how annoying group texts are. I think everybody recognizes the annoyance of group texting, because often conversations, two people will start having a conversation with each other that don't involve you, and so it's like, oh, but was it too much cream cheese for the, you know, and it's totally meaningless.
We have pretty great conferences, Glenn.
And so they wanted to, so I could tell that like the conversation that had just stopped from us leaving that conference was sort of carrying forward. And I was like, well, what's the worst possible thing that could happen? Let's start up a Facebook chat, and then everybody can talk to each other and whenever they want to talk to each other, and I don't have to get 100 text messages about somebody's cookie recipes.
Right. Yeah, and people want community. And
yeah, and it never stopped. It never stopped. The cookie recipes are still going.
People check in, Glenn, every morning as they wake up, every night as they go to bed, throughout the day, every day since the conference is in April. Or is that what your listeners are doing?
Well, a lot. So it's different. It's really variable. I mean, there are some people that are really power users, and then it kind of goes down. You know, it's a whole variety. But the whole organization, or like really, I mean, I think of it kind of like an organism, like an emergent system. It's, you know, it's you. Bart brought up how people are unique. Like, we know that homogeneity is not a good thing. Like, if you take a whole bunch of smart people, they're not going to solve a problem as good as people with, you know, different intellectual capabilities or different backgrounds. Like, we need people really to be themselves and own this problem, because there's other people out there just like them. So if you're struggling with something that's, you know, unusual and you feel alone, you need to be able to find somebody who can identify and say, hey, I've been through this too, and I want to help you, rather than try to jam everybody into the same way of being. We need to kind of like make an open platform, let people, you know, get the help they need for whatever they want, meet with other people like that, and really, people, regardless of the community, regardless of the challenge they're struggling with, they want to operate on that community. They want to make it better. Like, you guys wanted to operate on your conference. So you said, hey, here's a conference. Let's make a little community of these folks. And now you're doing this kind of stuff and you're building it. And this behavior is very similar to like other communities and other people. They want to help themselves too.
People are kind of people. You do have a question from Noreen, and let me tell you, Noreen is the coolest woman ever. She's out in the Pacific time zone, and she's sort of complaining just a little bit that that a lot of us are in the Central and Eastern time zone. But she did want to know how many hours a week you request from listeners.
0.
Wait a minute, you don't have to sign up?
You do have to sign up and go through that whole training process, but we actually had a schedule early on, and it was like a disaster, because you had to, like, you know, like, nobody likes to be harassed, like, hey, can you listen? Because I was doing this. I mean, it was crazy. I was like, hey, how's it going? I think you got a 2-hour shift. Can you be on? And then it was just like, listen, if you just create a system that lots of people want to come to, and then they want to help, then you don't have to worry about a schedule.
Whoa. Are you talking about intrinsic motivation?
Yeah, and like, listen, there are times, like, you know, there are times where it's going to be a wait. You're going to have to wait 7 minutes to chat with somebody. Like, and that stinks, and that's too bad, and we want to fix that. But that's a way easier problem to solve than trying to organize tens of thousands of people on a calendar. Like, it's just, you know.
Well, if you wanted to organize 130,000 volunteers, or how many listeners do you have?
120,000.
120,000. Like, so think of the administrative overhead that would be involved in that. Oh, and by the way, so you have, for example, the Veterans Crisis Line, and I'm not speaking on behalf of VA, just on my own as a human being, but they have a large call center. They have paid staff. They have backup centers. And they work very, very hard not to have a wait, and you still may occasionally, and it takes a tremendous amount of infrastructure to do this. Imagine that you're doing this with a handful of people for 120,000 responders, listeners. I mean, that's pretty efficient system, even for a few minutes of wait.
Yeah, we have to think about, like, for us, we're thinking globally, really. Like, we're not thinking, you know, like, I'm sure, like, the VA folks are thinking differently, but because we're thinking globally, there's no real mental health infrastructure in, like, lots of the world. So you have to, from the beginning, like, if you were to say, you know, like the whole first principles thing, like, if we just were to delete everything we knew about the mental health system now, like, just delete, and we were to say, let's build it new, let's just build it fresh, how would we build it? Like, it would look a lot different than what we have.
Yeah, we're really still operating on models for mental health care based on what Freud came up with, like, for spa treatment for Victorian housewives. So it's really, we're still sort of doing versions of that. And the problem is, it's not, if you're not just treating 12 rich housewives in Victorian England, that it's just not, it doesn't work the same, or Austria or wherever.
Yeah.
Bart, do you want to, Bart, your face is cracking me up. Any thoughts you want to chime in?
You are cracking me up. I think Glenn, his comments are right on. I mean, when I try to describe the mental health system to people who aren't familiar with it, they think I'm making it up because it's so poorly designed. It's so cumbersome. It's so difficult for people to get help. And we need folks to get help as soon as possible, and we need to remove those barriers. And Glenn early was talking about, and it's one of the reasons crisis lines are so effective, because crisis lines remove so many barriers, right?
Yes.
And you really kind of you've taken that model and really blown it up and expanded it out, and that's really amazing, because we know that, look, your first appointment's a complete waste of time, really, and all the driving, and that's assuming. And I'm telling you, in the St. Louis region, even if you have good insurance, it could be 6 weeks for you to get in to see a therapist, right?
And by the way, when you come to see me, I'm just going to make you talk about things. I'm probably not going to do a lot of pain relief.
There's no work going on, and so here you're getting, and we are, let's face facts, we are an instant gratification culture. Things have changed a lot just in the last 5 to 10 years with smartphones. And so what we're really seeing here is Glenn's capitalizing on where we're going, the cultural meme of everything's got to happen now. We need to meet people where they're at. We need to remove barriers. The other thing that's really cool about this, when you look at one of the biggest barriers people have to getting treatment, is it's prejudice and discrimination, but it's about self-agency. People want to be able to help themselves. The 7 Cups of Tea site is really people helping themselves, right? It feels like it's theirs. I'm not having to go through all these hoops where I have to get someone to help me. I can reach out on my own and make this happen. And that concept of self-agency is so powerful. I think that 7 Cups of Tea really leverages that sense of self-agency. I'm doing this on my own, right? And that probably feels really good. And I'm just so impressed with this. It's amazing how you saw this and implemented this. And I'm just so impressed, Glenn. It's very impressive stuff.
So go ahead, Glenn.
Well, just a couple of quick thoughts, Bart. Really, I didn't just to like it was really trial and error and figuring it out. So like this thing is awesome now, but it's been like a whole bunch of like sleepless nights.
When did you start this? When did you start this again?
June 2013 is when we launched it.
So. Bart, do you want to react or should I?
They've had a couple years. I'm sorry that you're not farther along with it. I think my immediate reaction is that, geez, $800,000 a month, and you've been up for a whole almost 2 years. Really, Glenn? I think we need to raise the bar a little higher than that, don't we?
Yes, that's true. We noticed how perfect you were.
Yeah, well, I was pretty impressed until that.
I guess what I was trying to say is like part of this thing is like you have to have this comfort with experimentation. Like we didn't figure it out because we had a plan. We figured it out because basically we listened to people that told us how to do it, like the users. So that's all I was trying to say about that. It's just the reason it's grown so much is because the users have owned it and said, do this, do that, change that.
Oh, stop! That's so not mental health, Glenn. We don't let the
patients what they want. They'll just be crazy and whining.
That's out of line.
Don't ask them what they want.
No,
they don't know.
They don't know. No.
I mean,
yeah. Go ahead.
We all know. Like I really do think like. Well, I don't want to say anything disparaging, but like clearly, clients. People are struggling. They're, plenty of very gifted, very smart, wonderful people, and to keep them, I think, removed from having a say or even helping us design things seems a little bit insane to me.
Yeah, we agree, Glenn.
We agree with you.
Well, and it gets to the Google when you talk to the Google folks, they talk about if you're not focused on the end user's experience. If your product doesn't meet the end user's expectations and doesn't make them happy, then you need to start over. You've missed something. And that's the exact opposite approach that we have in this archaic mental health system we have. You've taken that principle, make the end user happy. It should be something that they enjoy, that they like. And that's really what I'm hearing you saying is that's how we did this, is we let the end user tell us, hey, what works for you? And that's why this thing is so big and so beautiful at this point. It's just very cool.
And there were hints.
I'm gonna redirect this just a little bit.
Okay.
Because we've only got 15 minutes, and there's a couple of important things that I think that you can contribute that I would love to hear. Sure. So in we generally tend to at the end, like towards the end of the show, to sort of talk about what we think the future is, because we are not here as much as I do enjoy bitching about shortcomings in the current system, because I think if you've had to participate in any way in the current healthcare system at any point, you've got some complaints. But I really am interested in your thoughts about what the future is. So I'm very interested in the way out or the way to something that is better. So with the experience that you've had with 7 Cups and possibly with 7 Cups, what do you think the future is in using technology to help people?
Okay, so I thought a lot about this. So I don't stop me if if I get going too long on this or this is
run, go with it.
Okay. So first of all, I think the future will have a huge volunteer base for mental health, enormous. Like I think what we have is just the very, very beginning of it. I think it will be outcome driven, not some psychologist or therapist that do a symptom checklist in the beginning of therapy, in the middle, and the end. But it'll be a baked in regular part of the process. I think anonymity we will make sure that anonymity becomes it will remain a core part of what we do, because we know that half of the people don't get help because of stigma. It is insane to me that we have a mental health system where we knew if we could make it anonymous, we could help double the people we currently help, but we don't provide that as an option. So I think anonymity will be a core part of it in the future. I think outcomes I already talked about. I think we'll see so many more people getting help, and that therapists will move and mental health professionals will move towards, they'll still do like direct care, but I think they will work with teams of volunteers and treatment teams that have enormous scale and make really big impact.
This is great. How are you going to pay for it?
Well, the volunteers give because it helps them.
Yeah, but technology is not free. Infrastructure is not free.
It's not that expensive. Like the amount of, I mean, when no. Technology is all about doing things at scale. So like if you figure out how to do things right, your infrastructure costs are not enormous. And then for us, like we have people that upgrade, they upgrade their accounts or they can back us because they like what we're doing. We're going to be providing these, these verticals to organizations like a free EAP, and they can upgrade for extra bells and whistles.
Tell others what that means again.
So right now you can upgrade your path. So like you have this basic growth path with mindfulness, gratitude, CBT stuff in it. But if you have like social anxiety, then we build in specific exercises for you to help you do that. And you can take your own, you can change your growth path to like 32 different paths that we've created. And that's like $12.95 a month. So it's
now $13 a month, and let's be really clear that a psychologist who really knows what those things are participated in the creation of that, and the stuff that you do really does look very similar to what psychotherapy would look like.
Oh yeah, these are all like based on empirically supported treatments. Yeah, we're not just like making
for $13 a month. It's more than that's less than what you spend on the Hot Pockets.
$95 a year if you want to buy the whole year.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, keep going.
This is the point is just that we can support this infrastructure and this service with, it doesn't have to be loads of money, and it can be like incredibly effective, and outcomes can be baked right into it. And mental health professionals can be, really operating with much more impact than they are at present. And I think that's like a huge, like I think people they worry about technology. They think, all the volunteers are gonna, take our jobs. And it's like, no, right now there's like this many people getting help. There's gonna be increasingly being, more and more and more people getting help. And then you work with volunteers and technology to have a bigger impact than you do, sitting in your office seeing 30 people a week, which is fine. But like, and you can keep doing that if you want to, and we'll even support you doing that on 7 Cups. We will find people and refer them to you.
No, and let's be clear that it is not like people need to be sick so that I have a job. And that's what a robot's not going to replace you, and a volunteer's not going to replace you. There are things, either you have professional skill or you don't. So if you have skill that a regular listener might not, I could imagine platforms like this sort of identifying and funneling folks who are not getting resolution with just a peer support and saying,
right.
the basic junk didn't work here, and the technology can make it very easy to triage who is not getting better and get them to someone who's more appropriate.
Right. That's exactly the point. There's a whole treatment continuum, and we can do essentially everything via technology except hospitalization. I mean, we can't do medication yet, but I mean, I think that will happen, and we can't do hospitalization. But like the rest of it, hey, you've come in.
But hospitalization's so effective for most people who are emotionally distressed.
Right.
Anyway, keep going.
So, anyways, I think that's in broad strokes. I think that's what the future of mental health looks like. And obviously, it's on your phone. It's not, it's or this or it's like this. It's not, doing all this kind of crazy driving and making appointments and all the other stuff we're going to remove a whole bunch of barriers, help way more people, and the whole thing is going to grow. Is what I think.
Bart, do you have any thoughts as you're listening to this?
Well, I think Glenn's right on the money. I think that we have some big barriers in the way, and that's we have a huge industry that in many ways is going to fight this tooth and nail. I'm a little more pessimistic than Glenn is, but Glenn's optimism is amazing. I think a lot of the current systems get nervous about this sort of thing for the wrong reasons. But I think there's so much potential here. And I think that it really gets at the heart of the matter that this is a structure where you can get people help right away. You can maximize your reach, and you're hitting people where they are. They're not having to go somewhere. I mean, April, you pointed out we're using the same systems that we were using 100 years ago. Therapy doesn't look that much different than it did 100 years ago in terms of the structure of the system. And this now, the sort of things like 7 cups of tea are altering that structure. And that's huge because we need to start thinking about where do people live, where are they at, how do we get help to them more quickly, how do we do it affordably. I think the anonymity is absolutely huge, and I think what's really interesting for mental health professionals, the anonymity is very scary. I think for volunteers and for listeners, I think they see the power of that. Mental health professionals get very squirrely about anonymity. Because
if only we knew something about dealing with irrational anxiety. Sorry. Well, I know people who get scared. So here's the thing. There are a lot of parts about a platform like this that I think are anxiety provoking. That you don't know a lot about the person who might be listening to you on the other end. There's a bunch of stuff. And you go check out how the site handles that they do some really interesting, they handle that in a lot of interesting ways. But the truth of the matter is that there is this much scale and this much need. And you can wish for the world to not change and 30 people come to your office a week and a third-party biller just writes you a check. And if you spend 50 minutes with them, no matter how much better they get, you get a take-home pay and a retirement, account. And that's very lovely, and isn't that sweet? But the truth is that if you're interested in people getting well, the system's really not working, or it's not working as it should. And if you're interested in having a sustainable profession and you don't change, you're not going to have a sustainable profession. So whether you would like things to stay the same as a mental health professional or as a member of the system, it's not going to. And I think that is really important because if Glenn, and I'm going to put Glenn back up here, if Glenn can help nearly 1 million people a month with a handful of people, a handful of paid staff, your job is going to be different if you are a professional. It just is. Sorry, that was my shut it down with the monologuing, right, Bart? We didn't warn Glenn about that.
No, but Glenn, he picks up quickly. He reads people quickly. He saw the need was there, and he let it happen like a good, caring professional does.
Thanks, Bart.
Glenn, we're getting into the last 5 minutes, and we're going to do final thoughts here in a minute, though. But this is your last couple minutes. I know. Honestly, there's just so much to talk about, and we can't ever get to it all in an hour. But what should we make sure we don't leave out?
Well, we are going to start building out a therapist directory on 7 Cups, so like people can find you, and we will direct people to you. We have all these folks that are coming. Many of them need therapy. We would love to refer them to therapists that are, so look for more information on that. You can sign up. We'll then also be rolling out the ability for people to see clients on 7 Cups, do this thing. I know it's a little bit radical. It's this idea called messaging therapy, where for a certain amount of money per month, 1 time a day, you kind of check in with the clients, because instead of a 50-minute hour, you get kind of a You can just message people through our app and support them where they're at, and it will help. Like I said, my wife's a therapist.
I love that.
I understand income needs, and we want to help get income up for therapists too, and I think this is a way that we can do that. So look for that too.
I do DBT, and I don't know if we talked, I think we did. So I run a DBT group, folks who are high risk for suicide, who are really intense pain and borderline personality disorder, most of them. And they don't need 50 minutes every week or two. They really need 10 or 15 minutes every day or two. And remarkably, it's a similar investment in time.
Yeah.
But broken up differently has a very different outcome. It just turns out that conducting like an office visit doesn't work very well, but doing like a coaching session works great. So these technology platforms might allow for therapy to happen in different doses and a different frequency of doses.
Yes, that's right. Dosage is a really good way of saying it. And then also we can set up, if you want, if you're maybe kind of a radical therapist, you could set up your own little private support room, where, like in DBT groups, you've got people that support and help each other. There, you could have your own little group there where your clients can, and it's all anonymous, where they can support each other and you can kind of supervise and look at the whole thing if you want. Now, obviously, that's not going to be for every therapist, but if that's something you want to do, you'll be able to have that capability as well.
You do have a question from Desiree Stage, and if I don't ask you, she'll come for me in the night.
Yeah.
No, Des is a really good friend. I don't know if you know who Desiree Stage is. She is really known for her project LiveThroughThis.org, where she collects the stories of people who are suicide attempt survivors. And she's a fancy photographer, like portrait photographer and artist. And she's the queen of lived experience, also and winner of the Paul Quinnett Award. She's a suicide attempt survivor herself. And her question for you is, listeners can choose areas of expertise. Why is there no option for lived experience of suicidal thoughts or actions on 7 Cups of Tea?
We could provide that. We are not a suicide service ourselves. So if somebody is in suicide, we refer them to the National Suicide Hotline or a crisis hotline, because we believe those folks are the best at doing that, and we want to get those folks the best care. But we could provide a category for that if we wanted to. So that's something to think about. If she can email me, I would be happy to talk with her more about that.
Okay, so Des, you heard it. You have to email him. Glenn, what's your email?
Just glen.moriarty@7cupsoftea.com.
Just like the supervillain.
Yeah, that's me.
You're like, don't say that, Foreman.
Any other questions?
That was like the big one. They've been sort of really busy live tweeting out a lot of your commentary and reviewing your site.
My phone's going over here. That's just great.
But a bot is not going to take your job. Neither is volunteer. Look at them. They're doing great. So we're doing final thoughts. Glenn, do you have a final thought for SPSM? Having done this hour now, you've been indoctrinated.
Yes. No, I'm really, really thankful. I'm very thankful for this opportunity. I love that what you all are doing. I think it's really nice. I think it's a lot smarter than it seems. And I don't mean that like.
No, that's great. We're gonna meme that.
Well, smarter than it seems.
We did have one tag which was more exciting than your bowl of oatmeal. That was one of our favorite memes, but I like it.
This is like somebody could log on to this and not really understand the value you all are providing. So I think it's very smart, and I'm just thankful you're all doing it. I'm glad you had me on, so thank you.
Bart, any final thoughts for us tonight, Bart?
I often log on and find that I don't really realize the value of what we're doing. I think sometimes that happens for our viewers as well. Glenn, so impressed. Folks, you could just see the feed was just popping with this. It really resonated with the group. One of the most exciting comments was somebody's like, oh, shit, this is too good. I need to go get this on the big screen. So literally somebody left their Palm Pilot or their iPhone to go get this on a big screen. That's how cool. That's a big deal. That's forcing a platform shift is a big deal. Thank you for being here. You taught us a ton.
Thanks, Bart. I really appreciate it. Very gracious.
Tony, do you have any final thoughts for us, Tony, before I close this out?
Amazing stuff about the future of mental health. We're so thrilled to have had you, Glenn. It was an amazing appearance.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
And you've lost another Sunday evening to us and the X-Files and the Broncos Schmitz. The Broncos. Of course, big hello to Kendra who popped in, and it was so good to see you guys after the holiday break. I'm at Doc Foreman. Final thoughts. Please do go check out 7 Cups of Tea. If this isn't a platform that you would use, I'd be interested in knowing why, and I would be interested in your feedback. But do try to sort of look at some of the features. I think this is a good example of how this could look, or how one of these versions could look. And I would like our community to do some feedback. Final thoughts. Road test things. Give feedback. Very, very quickly, as we're closing out. Like us on Facebook. That's where you're going to get alerts about all of the cool things that are happening, not just the regular Sunday evening podcast, but we're going to be doing more things like Bart and Sevilla's Blabs, or Zing and Eriger did one. There's lots of great things for you to look at. So definitely follow on the Facebook. That's where the community posts everything that is going on. You should also know there's going to be a some sort of live streaming event from the Capitol in DC on the 2nd of February, where if you are an SPSMer and you are live tweeting, I will be there. I think we may have some other faces there, and we'll be curating it. But your expert feedback about suicide and technology might be really, really helpful to experts and leaders in the field. I know, but there was a lot to announce, Bart. It is a pleasure to be here. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.
And she did it all in one breath.